Can you talk about your experiences with the Border Collie and what made you, what drove you to owning and competing and breeding that style of dog?
Well, we've always had herding dogs, and we have all of our best friends have ranches, and it's just how our life has been. And one day we were at the Cattlemen's Association. A friend of mine said, "Do you know anybody who wants a Border Collie puppy? I've got a gorgeous litter of puppies up here, but I don't have any homes." And my husband had just lost his German Shepherd, and I grabbed my girlfriend and said, "Let's go out to the Lone Star Ranch and look at puppies." And I came home with JJ. That was our first. And we just got him as a companion, but he was fabulous. And then we decided to put him in training, and we went over to Merlin Sandy at Cow Dog College, and JJ did fabulous, but Sandy thought we needed a little bit more dog, and another friend was breeding a really nice litter, some old stock, and of course me, I bought every single book on the old bloodlines, and it turned out there were some really good bloodlines, and we bought Edie, and my husband had so much fun with her. But when you do USBCH on Cow Dog College, it's on horseback. And so we were always borrowing horses you literally are gathering cattle on horseback. Well, then, of course, we had to buy a horse. And then after we bought that horse, we decided to breed her, and then we got another horse out of her and sent that one for training, and pretty soon we have 3 horses and 10 Border Collies, and, it was so much fun. It was really a lot of fun, and my husband is one of those people that once he starts something, he gets really involved in it.
Right.
And so he was traveling quite a bit and trialing his dogs with USBCHA. United States Border Collie Association is what it is. But he was doing the cow dog thing. He was not doing sheep.
Okay.
And so it's a little rougher and tougher, and it's on horseback. So then it's a lot easier to have your own horse than to borrow a horse from somebody. And so now basically there's not a lot of trials anymore. They kind of canceled over the last couple of years. Several of the ranches that were holding them sold out. And so basically what he's done on horseback with his dogs is go to the ranches and help gather cattle all the time now, which he has a lot more fun than going to the trials. So he actually has a working cow pony and his working dogs. Wow. And that's how we actually got into it. And then several people in the AKC world bought dogs for me to do agility with and herding with. And they just excelled phenomenally. And a good friend of mine that owns Herding for You down in Vacaville, Debbie Pollard, she took a female from that because it was out of her male that we bred, and now she's gone on with her whole bloodline with Border Collies out of the foundation bitch that she got from me. So Debbie's kind of carrying it on for me because I'm at that point where it's hard to find homes for working Border Collies that I feel, unless they're a ranch or they're going to work their dogs. These dogs need to be worked. They really need exercise. And my husband takes 4 dogs to work with him every day. I'm not kidding you. Wow. 4 dogs every day. And then he runs them on the river bar and stops, and he uses them to gather cattle. And we've got, 6 boarders. Yeah, and 1 young one. And they've been great dogs, but he really does a lot of training with them, a lot of foundation work, and they listen to his every word. They're his dogs. So I lost my last boarder 2 years ago. She was really nice, but I kind of feel that adding any more dogs is taking away time from my other dogs.
Right. Can you explain the good and the bad about the Border Collie?
It's really hard to say bad.
Right.
And even though you hear all these things about, you don't want a Border Collie if you don't do that, I think the key is exercise, and we're pretty active, and we're on 4 acres. The dogs get turned out to run all the time. And if you do foundation work, and the most important thing to teach a Border Collie, actually any dog, is to settle, to chill, to learn how to relax. And the bad part is people don't teach their dogs foundation. They don't teach them to wait at the door. They don't teach them to wait for they don't teach them to be sound and settle in their body. That's the bad part, because then you can get a neurotic dog that's running everything. My husband can literally drop all the dogs in a row and they will not break because they know not to break their stays. They're really easy to train. I think our Border Collies, to be honest with you, they're easier than my Bearded Collies, because the Beardies are kind of like, wahoo, and the Borders are, yes, sir. What do you want me to do? And it could be the dogs that we picked, but I have to say, as a lot of the dogs that have gone out from our bloodline, people have said this is the best dog they've ever owned. because they settle, they calm down. But we did quite a few seminars in the early day. There was a really nice trainer out of Canada called Elvin Kopp, and he'd won the Calgary Stampede with his Border Collies, and I did a week-long seminar with him over in Red Bluff, and it was phenomenal what he taught us as far as getting your dogs to settle. Very quiet way, very quiet, starting them at 8 weeks, if not sooner.
Wow.
Well, most of the people that got dogs from me were ranchers or somebody that had stock, and they knew what they were looking for, and I would ask them what they were doing and what was their experience with Border Collies. And I got lucky in that so many of the people had already had Border Collies before, and they knew what they were doing. And a couple of agility homes that got dogs from me were phenomenal. They've gone on to win Master Agility Championships. They were all experienced people. I don't think I've ever sold a Border to anybody that hadn't had one before, because I'm kind of hard to find. So if they found me, they were looking. You know, it wasn't just a casual, it wasn't an ad in the paper. It was, you know, so-and-so's got these Border Collies and they're really nice. Or I've had people say, what are you doing your next litter? Would you put me down? And this is what I'm looking for. So the main criteria was, have you been around Border Collies? A lot like with the Beardies, and the care is not near as much as far as coat and stuff on the borders. Well, when I think the future for all dogs with reputable breeders is good, because a lot of people are doing health tests. It's really interesting. When I bought my first Border from the ranching area, no health test had been done at all. And I took it upon myself to do the health tests on the dog and pass with flying colors, but my attitude was, if they aren't healthy, or if they don't work, they're down the road. So they're not keeping, you know, something that doesn't work. And so they're not testing. Most of them weren't testing back there. I think the future is good for them because people are doing the health test. I did hips and I did eyes. One thing we did have, though, which was really interesting, was my husband was at a branding, and somebody brought a female in season, and she was loose. Nobody knew it, and she bred to one of our males that had all his health tests done. And I told my husband, I said, you know what, you're looking for a new female, even though she was a crossbred. You know, they weren't quite sure of her pedigree. I said, why don't you take a puppy out of Sterling and Silver's female, because they're really good working dogs. So we took a puppy, Sue, gorgeous female, looks just like the male that we own. And that was the puppy we wanted. And we had her about a year and a half. We still have her, but at a year and a half, she started crusting up on her nose, her eyes. And, you know, I took her to the vets, and he sent a sample to UC Davis, and she has lupus.
Oh, wow.
And she can't go outside. She can't go in the sun. Her kennel's covered, so she's out early in the morning, and the fog's in, she's loose, and we have to use a 50 sunscreen on her. We've got her on supplements, and she's lost all the pigment. And if she's in the sun, it breaks out into bleeding ulcers.
Wow.
And I tell people this. I said, this is out of a dog that was a crossbred, a mutt, you know. So this was not out of a purebred dog. This was out of a dog found on the side of the road. I mean, basically, with no health test done or anything. And I said, so you can't always say it's purebred dogs have all these issues.
Right.
You know, and who's to say the click happened that somehow she's got lupus? I've never had a dog with lupus in 40 years. And when I went to my vet, he said, this looks like lupus. I said, really? Which is an autoimmune disease.
Right.
And she looks fabulous. She's never sick. She looks great, but she can't be in the sun at all.
Right.
At all.
If what breed of dog that you've never owned or handled personally that interests you the most, and why?
Oh, there's so many.
You can name your top 3.
My top 3. Well, I would probably go back if I could find a German Shepherd like I started with. I love my first German Shepherd, Steele, was phenomenal. He was old bloodlines. I got a CD on him in 3 straight shows, a CDX on him. By the time he was 2 years old, he had his top 2 obedience titles. He was the most gentle dog, the best. If I could get another Steele in a heartbeat, even though he was 90 pounds, you know, he was just a fabulous dog. So right off the bat, Steele comes to mind. I probably wouldn't go anything in the toy group, but I would probably stick to the herding group. There's so many herding breeds that attract me.
Uh-huh.
The Beardy still comes to me being my favorite. I mean, it's just, I have my cardigan Welsh Corgi. I absolutely love her. I've had cardigans. I've bred cardigans. I've had borders. I probably will always have a Beardy. And I know you're saying that I haven't owned, but if I had to, I did have, I looked at Picardis, which is they call it the Winn-Dixie dog, and I like those. But I read a lot about them and said they had to be heavily socialized, that they could be shy, and I kind of steer away from that because I don't want to have to keep dealing with a shy dog. It's just a lot of work. Probably my German Shepherd, but I owned it. So you're asking for anyone I've never owned. That's a tough question. That's a really tough question. I have to really think about that. You know what? It probably would be a poodle.
Yeah.
It probably would be a poodle. I got to say, it probably would be a poodle. I probably would go for that. Oh, I know what dog I'd love to own. A Whippet.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I would love to own a Whippet.
Yeah.
I looked into Whippets years ago, but they were really sensitive to chemicals. And that was before we came out with Advantage, and we have such a flea problem. I didn't want a dog that I couldn't deal with fleas, on. So I love a Whippet. Definitely a Whippet and a Poodle.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really cool breed. I think that they're really neat little dogs. I wouldn't want anything really big, though. I think a Whippet. Italian Greyhounds, I like them, but they're too fragile. I'd probably break one.
Yeah.
They're really neat little dogs. But I actually have liked the Sussex Spaniel. They're really cool little dogs.
Yeah, I do. So, I love those too. Yep.
I'm lucky that I have restraint as I get older, because I'd probably own one of every herding breed. Herding breed or some of those. My girlfriend shows Irish setters, and she has beautiful Irish setters. They're just gorgeous, but they're too big for me.
Right.
They're just too big.
Yeah, too much dog.
No, I could see a Whippet. I think a Whippet would probably go to the top, because there's no grooming and they're really cool dogs.